Composing challenge. You're given 10 weird chords, and you want to put them all together into one composition. Here are the 10 weird chords. These are chords that have nicknames, chords that have, popular names that aren't just like major seventh or something like that. The Neapolitan chord, the backdoor chord, the double backdoor cadence, the augmented sixth chord, the Royal Road progression, the Hollywood cadence, the minor plagal cadence, the cadential 6/4, the Andalusian cadence, and the Picardy third. So how many of these can I cram together into one chord progression? Well, I've just been playing around with chord movements, and I came up with this chord movement, and nothing has been composed yet. I'd like to turn this into real music. So that's what this is going to be about today. I'm just going to kind of walk you through the process of what I'm doing first. And I'm envisioning this as a funky jazz rock kind of thing. So maybe like a jazz fusion, rock, jazz rock, something like that, where there's a nice prominent lead, but there's also this wonderful harmony, which I'm outlining right here, that contains all those weird chords. So I have a blank set here. Ableton is brand new, right? There's nothing going on here. And the first thing I want to do, I'm torn. I want to lay down a bass idea I have first of a funky bass, but I think it might be best to just get the chords in. Let's just program in the harmonic motion, right? How long each chord sustains for. Maybe just do it on a pad. And then let's also get a basic drum loop, just a simple drum loop. And then I think it might be a little bit easier to start writing a bass part. But I do have an idea of what the bass part's going to be. I don't think I'll forget that. So what I'll try to do is the hard work here first of just getting that outline of the chord progression in first. I found a simple Rhodes keyboard patch. And I'm going to be just programming in the first chord here, which is F. And after that, I can just kind of program my way through the rest of this instead of actually playing it, because I'm terrible at the keys, but obviously I'll be playing all the bass parts and the guitar parts myself. All right, so here we have it. Here's the entire chord progression, the same one that we're seeing here. And we also have a very basic drum loop underneath, and so the whole thing sounds like this. Right, nothing fancy, but it's enough to at least I can start adding layers to this. So I've got a general idea of what I want to do here on the bass, essentially doing a lot of the same rhythms for every single chord. So I'll just kind of give you an idea of what the rhythm would be like. If this is my click track, I'm going to be doing a lot of da 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 da, 1 and 4 and 1 and 4 and 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 bum 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 bum. Just a simple kind of dance pattern, and I'll probably change that up in little moments, but I can outline most of those chords that we saw earlier just using that pattern. And it'll take a little bit of time to refine that, but it's going to sound something like this. Something like that. I'm going to craft it just till I get it just right, and then once it's recorded, we'll add the next layer. Little progress has been made here. We have now written our own drum part instead of relying on this drum loop from before. So here's what we were hearing before. And here is what we're hearing now for our drum loop. And if we put that together with the rest of the beat, I don't expect that drum loop to stay exactly as is. It's two different grooves. Later on, it changes a little bit here, but there's a lot of looping going on. And I never like to have too many loops going on or the same part looping so many times it just gets stale. Real drummers don't do that. Real drummers have nuance. They'll put in a little fill here. They'll play a pattern slightly different, right before the section changes. So as this song grows, I'm going to try to make it a point to come back to this drum part and not just say, it's done. It's a really easy thing to do. Be like, I'm done with the drums. No, you're probably not. And as the song grows, you want to go back to the drums, see if those drums can assist anything you're adding in later on. But I think for right now, I'd like to move over to the guitar and see if I can write some funky rhythm patterns to help kind of juice this up, because it's really lacking energy right now, and I think a good guitar part could change that. So for guitar stuff, I'm thinking high bar chords, stuff like this. There's our first chord progression. And we're doing little baby bar chords, right? Little bits of chords instead of entire bar chords. D major 7, here's a B half diminished, moving to, where goes after that? A, and then F sharp minor 7, and then F major to G, and then to A. So you're going to hear it start off with more percussive stuff, and then you're going to hear it move into more arpeggiated stuff. And I don't have it quite figured out just yet, but I'll kind of walk you through the basic idea of it, counting off 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Okay, just forget about that last chord that I played. That is basically the whole chord progression there, and you can hear it is starting to come together, especially compared to where we started from, right? We started from very humble beginnings, and we are starting to hear something form. I fully expect I'm going to have to go back over every one of these tracks and re-record them once I know exactly what I'm trying to do here. So I like to think of this as sloppy copy, as just a sketch, right? We're sketching out the ovals on the paper, and then eventually it'll, oh yeah, it looks like a human, and then you can, get rid of those ovals. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, because I really don't know what I'm looking for, and the more I do, the more ideas I have, and the more inspiration it gives me to go to the next step. And I think for the next step here, I'm actually going to go straight into writing a melody. So trying to write something melodic on top that you could sing, and I'll obviously be doing this on my guitar instead. And then once that is all jiving, and I'm happy with that, then I can go over and kind of individually spend time with each of these tracks to make sure that they're doing just what I like. And I expect there will be more layers too. I expect there's going to be maybe some more percussion layers, maybe an extra keyboard layer. We shall see. But next, I'm going to try to write a melody. Now, there's a lot to write for the melody, and I'm not going to walk you through this entire process, but I'm going to show you what I've started off doing already, is just kind of playing around with the notes in the key. This is essentially the key of A minor when it starts off of, or the key of C major. And I found just some notes that I liked here. These are just really simple things, just simple notes here. And what I was thinking about is targeting this note in the F major 7 chord. The first chord we're hearing is in F major 7. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to target that 7th note? That's the E right there. So I'm kind of playing this little funny little phrase. I always want to start off a solo with something interesting. I don't want to start off with just a note. So like a bend is a great way to start off, or a slide. So here I'm just doing, and that's just an interesting way to enter the party. And it's not a linear scale run. It's something dum ba da dum. It's trying to jump it around. Hopefully it catches your attention. And then resolving to that note right here. So here's what it sounds like in context. So that's all right, okay? What I wrote there, I kind of improvised it, then I kind of wrote, like the last part I improvised, but the first part I definitely wrote, and I'm going to keep playing with that till I like it. I'm going to tweak a little few things. I'm not 100% in love with it, but 90% of it I like. And then hopefully that'll inspire me afterward to say, okay, well, what's next? I've basically written the first part of a story, dum da da dum bum ba da dum, and then whatever I craft, it's going to have a natural follow up to it. And really, I'm going to kind of work it like a book. I'm going to write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but I'm going to let each part of the melody kind of inform my decisions for the next part of the melody. And this is a slow process. Just doing this little thing right here took me, 5 minutes of playing around. And, that's only, 2 measures, 3 measures. So doing the entire thing is going to take quite a bit of time, and then revising it and reviewing it. But I love this process. I really enjoy it, and I like tweaking things till they're just right and making it memorable. You want to be able to walk away from your DAW, and you want this melody to be stuck in your head. And if it's not, then maybe your melody isn't good enough. So that's kind of what I look for. Is this stuck in my head? Are there parts of it that are stuck in my head? What do I have to do to make this melody stuck in my head? So I'm just going to keep chipping away at it, and I will come back when at least I have the full version that might still need some revision, but I will come back when the full melody is written. I'm also going to say I may resort to writing the melody on a keyboard, right? Clicking in the notes. That way I can audition lots of fast things and not have to practice them on my guitar. Because every time I have an idea on my guitar, if I want to hear it, I have to practice it and then play it. But on, MIDI, I could just program in the idea and see, do I really like that in context? And then I can learn it on my guitar. So if I do that, I'll show the MIDI track as well. But right now, I'm just going to kind of keep jamming out on the guitar. Well, it's a totally different week, and I've made plenty of progress on this track. It's basically done, and I wanted to walk you through the changes that I made to complete things. It's still the core foundation of everything you saw before, but there have been little small changes. Actually, lots of small changes. Too many to walk through, but the big changes are what I want to discuss. First is the drums. I did clean up the drums by making them more interesting. Instead of having everything just being copy-pasted for measures, I started referencing other instrument tracks. I started adding in little rhythmic patterns. I added a bongo pattern. I added a shaker pattern as well. So the percussion part on its own, this is basically the rhythm track. You're hearing the drums, pretty much the same beat as before, not too much of a change. But we've also added a bongo back there, or a conga. And then later on, we're going to bring in a shaker, and we get rid of the conga, and that shaker just adds energy. It's one of those, tips that I always recommend, is that if your rhythm section just is lacking energy, if your song is lacking energy, try throwing in some percussion loop, like a shaker loop or a tambourine loop. And here I'm using a shaker. And what's important there is that I started adding in some rhythmic ideas. There's this kind of an idea that's going to bloom throughout the rest of this piece right here, where you're going to have this little rhythmic hook of da 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 bum bum da 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 bum bum da 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 ba da bum bum. So that was like a melodic idea I started writing after the fact, and then later I thought, well, if this was a real band practicing, the drummer would hear that and say, hey, maybe I accent that. So I went back in and I had the drums kind of accent that pattern. That's what you're going to hear here. Bum, bum. Bum, bum. Bum, bum. And you should hear that being referenced through the other instrument lines as well. And let's start talking about some of those other instrument lines as well. The key part is the same. I've left that exact same key section in here, so you can hear just like this. Let's turn that up just a tiny bit so you can actually hear it a little bit along with everything else. Basically, it's this, no change from that at all. Same synth pad. But I did add in strings this time. You'll hear these guys in here. And these strings are just the top two notes of the chords we saw before. So these were the big chords that we programmed in, and then just take these top two notes and then put them in there on the strings instead. And that's not the only option. There's plenty of options we could have done there. That's the lazy option. And it worked. It worked very, very well. Next, take a listen to this clavichord pattern that I added in. And it's actually, you're hearing two things. You're hearing a clav, and I'll play that all on its own here, which is this part. And you're also hearing this percussive guitar pattern. This is a slight change of what I did before. So what you heard before was a little bit more sparse. This is like consistent 16th notes. Right, so that's just always decka 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 bum. I think there's a few eighth notes in there. You can actually see them right there. Decka bum bum. But combining those together, they're almost the same pattern, and there's a little bit of variation, and I like it. It sounds sloppy, but if you put those two together, take a listen. Right, so there's a little stereo weirdness. I've got them panned apart just a little bit, and I like the way that comes together. If you listen to that with the rest of the pattern. So all of that really informed my bass pattern. I ended up changing my bass line a lot, and I ended up spending quite a few days, actually, getting the bass line just right. So this is a different bass pattern. It's much more staccato, and I think it's really, really fun. So, it took a while to get it just right, but there's a big prominent thing going on here where this part of the song is more low energy. And I'm doing that with really staccato bass parts. There's, there's not a lot of sustain going on here in the bass, and there's a lot of those chukka patterns, right? So this part of the song feels like part A. This part of the song feels like part B. And it's nice to have two parts, right? That's a good thing to have. And part of that, what's distinguishing these two parts is what I'm doing on the bass. Here, the bass is really staccato. Here, the bass has a chance to open up a little bit more, and there's more sustain going on. And at the same time, that's also where the drum part kind of opens up a little bit more. Instead of being on the tight hi-hats, we're on the ride cymbals instead. And that's also when the melody changes. So basically, a lot goes on here to make this feel like a B section. And there's no reason it had to be a B section other than I want it to be. We started with this chord progression, and at no point in time did it really need to be a B section. I mean, we had a Picardy third in there. We had a key change. That's a good kind of indicator that, hey, if the key is changing, maybe this is a good place to have a new part of the song. But either way, we've created that through all these things. So let's listen to the bass line here just for this first part. And you know what? I'll mute these other parts. I'll mute the strings. I'll mute the clavichord, and I'll keep the chukkas, and so we can hear the bass just a little bit better. Actually, we'll mute the guitars as well, so it's just bass and drums and stuff. So do you hear this? Did you feel that transition? This was all really staccato. You could even see it. Look at how staccato you can see my performances. Lots of rests, lots of quiet spots. But then all of a sudden, this is not a quiet spot. And this is the first time you can see that. So even without listening, you know that something's happening here. And that's where I start sliding up the major scale, and I start letting those notes ring out a little bit more. And then here you can see I've actually got notes that are sustaining for a little bit at the beginning of the beat. So listen to that transition again. It happens right over the Neapolitan chord into the cadential 6/4. And it kind of blooms. So you can hear right there, there's a little bit of that rhythmic accent we were talking about before. And there is one other thing here that I think is worth mentioning is I wrote this guitar riff as just like a extra pattern. I wanted to just kind of hear some extra movement, and I wrote this pattern right here, which was just me jamming on like a pentatonic minor scale. It wasn't very interesting. And let's come back here for this. Oh, no, we got to mute a few more things. I want to mute the chukkas. I want to mute the clavichords. We can mute the strings. And let's turn this line up a bit so you can hear it. Do you hear that? I'm playing one note. I'm just palm muting it. I'm doing a little bit of pentatonic minor. And I was riffing with that. But I really liked little bits of it. I like this do-do-do-dum-dum. I really like that pentatonic thing. That do-do-do-dum-dum. And then I do it again here. And I liked it so much that I stole it for the bass line. So if you come back and listen to the bass line, I'll mute this a little bit, or I'll turn this down to the right level. And you'll hear that at this point in time, right here, the bass is actually doing the same thing as the guitar. And that's because I thought, later on down the line, I'm like, I'm going to steal what the guitar part did. So, writing is supposed to be an evolving thing. And this is what happens when you have, 6 musicians in a room, is they're listening to one another. They're playing off of one another. When it's just you can't have 6 of you at the same time. You can only have 6 of you from different periods of time, So here is, a past version of me, being observed by a future version of me and saying, oh, that was cool. Let me adjust things as I go along. And I think that's what's supposed to happen. Very rarely are you just going to write the part perfectly and just it stays there. Hopefully you're listening and you're looking and you're saying, oh, I could do this. Oh, this works here. I could take a little bit of that, because the picture evolves as you continue to write. So if I listen to these together now, and you can just see that highlighted section right here. Let's just kind of keep your eye on that right there. Here, we'll actually change the color just so you can get an idea. Right, did you hear that? Just pay attention to the bass, and now I'll boost the bass up just a little bit more so you get a better idea. And I do that a few times throughout here. And I love that. I really enjoy that. It's fun to play on the bass as well. So just a little bit of nuance there, and I think, ultimately your songs are going to be about the little things you do, because there's only a few notes, there's only a few chords that are out there, and, it is the little things that all add up. Now, the melody is something that is worth making an entire video on, because there is so much I could teach here. I could talk about how we use arpeggios. I could talk about phrasing. I could talk about structure. I could talk about lots of things. What I'm going to say is that it's lots of arpeggios. Most of the licks that you hear can be thought of as an arpeggio. Like this first little phrase is basically just the notes of an A minor 7 arpeggio, but then I resolve to an E note, because E is in the F major 7 chord. So we start on an F major 7 chord, but we're in the key of A minor. So I just started off with this A minor 7 arpeggio. And that little lick right there is da-na-na. I'm basically just going down the notes of a G chord, but I did this fun little chromatic approach to get to the third. So if you've watched my video on the Jimi Hendrix chord, you know that like the major third na can be approached from the na, that little bluesy kind of bend up right there, and that's what I'm doing. And it's a fun little chromatic flavor right there, but then I'm just going down the arpeggio. This can even be thought of as an arpeggio here. I think of it more of as a scale run, really, because, we're in A minor. I was thinking of the A minor scale. That's an actual lick right here, so we've got like an actual jazz lick, which is some chromaticism. That's basically all it is chromaticism. Here, we're just outlining the notes of a pick of the Neapolitan chord. And then right there, that's really simple melody, just pinging the chord tones. I'm just thinking, here's my new chord, let's play some of those chord tones. Here's my new chord, let's play some of those chord tones. And since we're working with the Neapolitan chord that's moving to the dominant chord, that means we're using stuff like the flat 2, and then, the tonic, and then the major 7th. They're all kind of appearing right there. And then finally, I close off with like an ascending add, I guess it would be an add 9 arpeggio here. We're going up an A major add 9 arpeggio right here. That boom, 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 boom. That 5, 1, 2, 3, 5. And then this is a descending major 7th arpeggio. Fun little lick. And just because that's where we finally see the A major 7 chord. So lots of arpeggios to put together this whole melody. I'll play it all the way through now. So obviously we've got some big leads coming in here next, and what I want to do is mute those leads and let you listen to more of the rhythm part that has appeared here. So as the song evolved, I started coming up with these ideas, and one of the first ideas was these arpeggiated lines right here. So let's mute this thing right here. Take a listen to this arpeggio part all on its own. I have also doubled this arpeggio part with some keys. So this is guitar and keyboard doing the same stuff. Right, so I'm just arpeggiating those chords that we heard before, and I'm doubling them with a keyboard and a guitar for a nice sound, right? Now, I think the important thing here is this little thing is this. Let's listen to this extra line I'm adding in here. Take a listen if you can hear it. So it's just an idea that came to me, and I'll be honest with you, I stole it from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. There's a song, Twilight Zone, or not Twilight Zone, Starlight Zone, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just a 2-note landmark. It's a 2-note centerpiece. It's just a little thing that shows up there, and it's really fun, and it's really enjoyable. And as I was writing this, I mean, it started feeling like a Sonic the Hedgehog song, and I heard that da-da-da-dum-bum-bum, which was in my melody, and it made me think of bum-bum, like a doorbell. So I tried to implement that with this piano part that you were hearing right here. That little doorbell right there. And then again. And then again. And and then a variation. Right, so just a little variation there. That's kind of what I was playing off, is that idea, and that certainly started affecting the way I was writing the melody and everything like that. So let's talk about this big melody. We can listen to it just as the guitar part on its own, which sounds like this. All right, and once again, lots of arpeggios going on there. I'm basically thinking of the chord tones the whole time. Now, I doubled that exact same part. So I played the same thing an octave lower on my guitar. I actually recorded myself doing that. So this isn't like a trick, an octave thing. This is really playing at an octave lower, and it thickens it up. All right, that's what they sound like together. Here's what the low one sounds like all on its own. And just a comment, if you're into the production side, look at how much of the quality, look at how much frequency space I've taken away from that. I don't need much other than that octave. So the guitar tone initially sounds like this. But that's way more than I need. I don't need all that frequency. I just need the hint. I need the phantom of an octave below. And that complements this. Now, I also decided to mimic that exact same line with a synthesizer. So here's the exact same stuff played on a synth. All right, and we'll just play this one all on its own so you can hear that on its own. Take a listen. And I also have it on this synthesizer. So just doubling some synths to literally play the exact same thing that you just heard. And let's see here. Yeah, and I'm also doubling it with some bells. So very quietly in the background. These ones are going to be super quiet. I'll have to boost these so you can hear them. Right, so these are all adding up to this giant melody sound. Now, right there, what's fun is that these are no longer unison lines. So up in this entire thing right here, up until this point, the notes were doing the same thing as my guitar. But at this point in time, I said, let's just forget that for a little bit. Let's actually have this split into harmony. So this right here is a harmony line. This note is playing a D. I think the guitar is playing, I don't know, something like not a D, all right? It's playing a third above it or a third below it. I don't know off the top of my head. So the scale run is just going up. And then this is now harmonizing with that for a brief little bit. And then right here, we're back to unison lines, right here at this point in time. This little major seventh arpeggio. So at that point in time, they're back to doing unisons, all right? And then they all come together to form the lead line that you have heard. So that is the walkthrough of the dirty, dirty details. And for one last step, what I'll show you is what I do to master this, even though I have no idea how to master. I'll just show you what I do just to share it in case you're interested. So what you do is you take all these tracks, you render them out, and then you make sure that there's some overhead. You don't want anything to be blaring out. Right now I have a limiter on here. So as you click play, you want to make sure that you're not popping into the red territory on your meter right there. So you render this out, and then you've got as a WAV file, as a high quality WAV file, and you have the full WAV file. And then what you do is you make up a whole new live set, and you drag that WAV file in there. So here is the WAV file of the song that we just mastered, and those are all the tracks together. And what I have on here is a copy of Ozone 8, which is by Isotope, and around the holiday seasons you can get this stuff on sale for very cheap, and I really do recommend it. It's high quality software, and it just makes your stuff sound better. What I've done here is I'm pretty sure I clicked a preset. Yeah, I clicked a preset. I went down to signature presets, and I clicked on mid-range detail. I don't have any preference for that preset. I really am one of these preset just find something, see if you like the way it sounds, and make some adjustments from there. And those adjustments I made from there were really around here in the dynamics. I want to make sure that my compressors are being used. So I want to make sure that like I am compressing certain signals so things are a little bit balanced. And to do that, this is going to be a little loud, but what you'll see me do is you're going to see me kind of duck these things down until I can see the compressors are actually being triggered. That's too much. That's none. And I'll do that for every band, really, and listen too. Obviously, use your ears. You don't want to just use your eyes. But I do think when it comes to stuff like this, using your eyes is helpful. You want to make sure that, that something is happening. And even if you can't, directly detect it, sometimes that does add up all subconsciously. I played around with a stereo imager, kind of adding some width there, just kind of messing around with that, and then lowering the threshold down to make sure that my maximizer is actually, in play too. So it's mostly a preset, and it's a little bit of tweaking. And then after that, I can render this out as an MP3 and share it and film a video for it. And, well, that's all she wrote. So I hope this is helpful for you, or at least fun to watch. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions, or you'd like more specifics on the plugins that I'm using or anything like that. But most of this is stock plugins. The only thing that I wasn't using that's really stock is some Reason synthesizers and my guitar VST amp simulators, which are all by Neural DSP company. So thanks for watching. I'll see you.